This is the Vic Feazell Show podcast, sponsored by Moroso Wood-Fired Pizzeria, Pinewood Coffee Roasters, and the law offices of Vic Feazell.
Is this a special edition, Vic?
Are we recording?
We're recording.
Is the tape rolling?
The tape is rolling.
This is a very special edition because somebody is going to be executed in Texas on November 20th. November 20th.
Yeah.
That's just a few days from now. Unless something is done, unless Governor Abbott does something, an innocent man may be executed.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So we're going to go into the case of Rodney Reed today, which is, it's all over the news nationally, and for very good reason that we're going to go into. So to summarize the case, Rodney Reed was pinned with the 1996 murder of Stacey Stites, who was a 19-year-old woman who was found strangled and raped in a wooded area in Bastrop, Texas. And the jurisdiction it falls into, Vic.
Drum roll.
Oh, our favorite.
Georgetown, Texas, Williamson County.
Yes.
Home of Jim Boutwell, home of Ken Anderson, home of all those boys that just
It's just such a pattern.
Pattern,
it's just
man.
sad at this
Throw
point.
people's rights out the window, you know? And trying to get them to admit that they've done anything wrong or that they might have messed up or that they might have convicted the wrong guy is like trying to throw a cat out of a speeding car.
I like that one.
They're not going to do it. And so that's why everybody listening to this, everybody listening to these celebrities that have come out, but what got my attention was the news this morning when 26 Texas lawmakers signed a petition and sent it to Governor Abbott saying, commute this death sentence. They're not even asking him to let this guy go free.
Right.
They're saying, commute it.
Slow the roll, man.
Don't put him to death if we're not sure. That's all they're asking. And these 26 Texas lawmakers, I recognized a lot of the names. We're not talking about unknowns here. We're talking about Texas senators. We're talking about people who have been elected to this Texas House of Representatives. Not somebody that's sitting over here writing rules for Dungeons and Dragons or something like that. I'm talking about people who know what they're talking about. Now, you mentioned earlier something about Kim Kardashian. I couldn't pick her out of a lineup.
Yeah, she called Abbott out on, I think, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, one of those.
So I barely know who she is because, like I've said before, I don't watch any of that TV stuff. I don't go for the pablum like Entertainment Weekly or the news. You know, I get my news.
Really just the news.
The news. I get my news from the newspaper because I don't trust those talking heads either. They all got opinions, and they don't give you news anymore. They just give you their cotton-picking opinion. So I've gone back to trying to find real journalism, and it can be found. But, man, when I saw that 26 Texas lawmakers had signed on to this, that got my attention.
Yes.
Now, I've seen other people talking about it, and I go, well, you know, they're always talking about wrongfully convicted.
There's always someone wrongfully
There's always
convicted.
somebody.
Man.
I mean, you and I both binge-watched Making a Murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephen Avery.
That's great.
How many people think Stephen Avery did it? You know, if you saw that. Well, I don't.
I don't either,
I
Vic.
don't. And I don't know why those ballless judges didn't do something about his appeal.
You've really got to wonder.
You got to wonder, because any reasonable mind would have doubted, and especially when you look at that DA that prosecuted it, what a snivelly, whiny, porky pig, dishonest kind of guy he was. He was just icky, you know?
Oh, yeah, and all of his little his tactics throwing the press conferences right there.
Yeah, throwing his... I wish I could have defended Stephen Avery. I'd have twisted that guy's ear. He'd have been screaming and crawling out of the courtroom by the time I got through him. He is not a quality lawyer. He's not.
Jeez.
Now, Avery had some decent lawyers.
Yeah,
but
he did.
They had tricks pulled on them they weren't used to. See,
Right.
I've been come at by the FBI, by the Texas Rangers. You name them. They've come
Not
after
much that'll
me.
surprise you
Yeah.
at this point.
So I can see it coming a lot of times. These guys, they didn't see it coming. I remember my wife was watching, while I was watching the young lady lawyer do her argument before the Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
And she said something. I go, no, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that. Say this instead. And that's exactly what they turned on, is, oh, you're asking us to change the law, change all this precedent. And I go, no, Your Honor, I'm not asking you to change any law. I'm asking you to look at the law as it is and apply it to this particular case in a particular way.
Right.
Because there was so much police misconduct in that case, it was incredible.
Yeah.
And in this case, Rodney Reed, we have more prosecutorial and police misconduct.
Yeah.
This was from 1996, Georgetown.
Yes.
Still, we got to maybe remind our listeners that Georgetown is where Michael Morton got convicted, who spent decades in prison for a crime he didn't do, only to find out that the DA down there had withheld evidence, had withheld witnesses, and had lied.
Just straight up lied.
Straight up lied. He lied so much. Well, by the time that all this came to light, he wasn't a DA anymore. He was sitting on the bench. He was a judge. He was a judge in the very courtroom that convicted Michael Morton, out of the same DA's office that convicted Lucas for orange socks.
Right.
That we know he didn't do.
Yep.
And now we know that orange socks is Deborah Jackson, thanks to DNA.
Yes.
But Rodney Reed was the victim of this same kind of police misconduct and withholding of evidence. And
Or just the straight up not even checking into evidence is what we saw here.
not even checking into it.
Not even trying.
And like orange socks, did you notice this similarity? In orange socks, right off the bat, they had a really good suspect.
Right.
The guy who probably really did it. But when Lucas came along, they forgot about him.
Yeah.
And put all their efforts into concocting this false confession. Well, in this case, they had a suspect.
They did.
A good suspect.
A phenomenal suspect
A
who had every motive in the world.
Every motive, and he had done this kind of behavior before and has done it since and is now in prison for similar behavior. And drum roll again, the big thing about this, he was a cop.
He was a cop.
He was a cop in Williamson County, a policeman.
Jeez.
With his friends investigating this case, and we got to point out this was 1996, so not quite as backward.
Coming out of the era of the Wild West 80s. Of Jim Boutwell.
Yeah, coming out of it a little, but at the same time, one of the things we didn't mention about Stacey Stites, is that not only was she just 19, but she was a white girl.
Right.
Now, that plays in here because Rodney Reed is a black man.
Correct.
Yeah. And in Georgetown in 1996, if you were a black man having sex with a white woman, you could be convicted of a crime even if you hadn't committed a crime. I mean, sex with a white woman? Okay, go to jail. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we're coming out of that. And I got to take up for Georgetown a little. I mean, I kind of grew up partway in Williamson County. Mm-hmm. I remember I had to go to that courthouse to register for the draft when I turned 18.
That was the Nom era, right?
That was the Nom era. It really
you
was.
almost got drafted, didn't you?
I missed it by 2 weeks.
Oh, my Lord.
I got my letter to show up for my physical.
Yeah.
My lottery number was 6. So, what's my chances? And I was getting ready to pack my suitcase, take the bus to Dallas, get my physical, and bang, I'd have been in boot camp and in Vietnam.
Wow.
A week later, I get another letter. It says, stand down, don't show up, there's more news coming.
Wow.
A week after that, I turn on TV, and there's Richard Nixon on TV with a press conference. Ladies and gentlemen of America. And he stopped the draft right there.
Ooh,
and then I get another letter saying, don't report. So I got to tell you, Vic Feazell sitting here, and I had friends that went to Vietnam. Some came back, some didn't.
Right.
And I love and respect everyone who served our country over there. But no matter what Richard Nixon did, no matter what he's accused of, I'll always say, God bless Richard Nixon, because he stopped the draft.
Yeah, it took you off the chop block.
He took me off the chopping block. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was. But,
so there is respect for Georgetown.
Yeah. So, there's there's things about Georgetown I like. There are good people down there. Southwest University. They have a university down there, a private school that's a top-notch college. And but the problem I've got with this case is that the murder weapon was a belt.
Yes.
That belt has never been tested for DNA.
Never.
Never.
So, what's up with that?
What's up with that?
How do you not test a murder weapon for DNA when DNA is readily available?
Why wouldn't you want it tested?
And that's like point number one here when we go through this of what the issues are with it.
I know. Do you remember when Michael Jarrett was in here just a few weeks ago? Michael was an assistant DA in Georgetown before he came to Waco. Mm-hmm. Michael was involved in solving the Rita Salazar case that Henry Lucas had confessed to and helped find the real killer who's now behind bars. When Michael was sitting in the chair that I'm sitting in right now with this microphone in front of his face, he said it's the duty of the prosecutor to turn over every stone.
Yes.
It's our duty not to convict, but to see that justice is done. And, and that's not original to Michael, but I'm glad he said it here. That's in the Code of Criminal Procedure.
Oh,
that
cool.
is rule number 1. But if you remind a prosecutor of that, they get mad. I wrote a letter to a prosecutor one time just saying, and as I'm sure you're aware, the first rule in the Code of Criminal Procedure is that it's not the duty of the prosecutor to convict, but to see that justice is done. Whoa, she got so mad at me. It was
Really?
incredible.
Oh.
Just because I happened to remind her of what her duty was because I thought she had forgotten about it. And she got real angry with me.
Well, why is it, Vic, that prosecutors get into such a mindset? That they get so tunnel vision into, is it just about getting numbers? Getting convictions?
I think so. I think it's about numbers and it's about ego. It's about wanting to win, and they get into this pattern where they want to win at any cost, even if it means hiding evidence, even if it means lying, and that's wrong.
Or not DNA testing a murder weapon.
Or not DNA testing a murder weapon. And the lawyers for Rodney Reed have requested repeatedly that be tested. Now, the DA down there said no.
Right.
So they had a right to appeal. They appealed that all the way to the Court of Criminal Appeals. I think that's 9 judges on a court down in Austin, Texas. They're all elected, and they make the final decision on these cases. And you'd think that a Court of Criminal Appeals, these are supposedly intelligent people with a sense of justice. You would think that they want to do the right thing. Do you know what they did?
Well, from what I read here in 2018, they declined to review. So, yeah, they didn't even look at it.
They wouldn't even look at it. They said, nah, we'll go along with the district judge, and we'll go, I don't know who it was back then. It might have been Ken Anderson, for all I know. And we know we can't trust him. I mean, he's proven that himself. So we're going to go along with the district judge and the Court of Appeals and say, no, you're not entitled to this. We don't care what the truth is. Jury found you guilty. By the way, an all-white jury.
You're right.
An all-white jury, when Rodney's defense was, she and I were having consensual sex. We had had a relationship for a while.
Right. And that's how they brought him in. That's how they looped Rodney even into the cases. They did find, obviously, his semen in her.
Yeah, they were willing. They would look at the DNA for that.
And they
found his
instantly off the other suspect, instantly onto Rodney Reed.
But then would they look at the other suspect, the Georgetown policeman?
Nah. Crazy. And this goes back to that Michael Jarrett thing that you were just talking about. It is their duty to do this. So why would a prosecutor not want that tested? Because Michael Jarrett sat here and said, it's our duty to test everything that we can. It takes a little bit of time, but it's not expensive to do. And at the end of the day, you can sleep well at night knowing that as a prosecutor, you got the right guy.
I know. It's unfortunate that sometimes they get so tunnel visioned in just wanting to win and just wanting to crank up the numbers that they totally lose sight of justice. Remember, I was late. I mean, this episode may not have aired yet. It may be going to air after this one, but I was late to an episode recently that you did with Lynn Woolley.
Yes.
because I was in an emergency court hearing because of this very sort of thing where a prosecutor has gotten tunnel vision and they totally forget about what's right, what's so obviously the right thing to do. But no, I want to twist somebody's arm to extract a guilty plea, even if they're not guilty, because I want the numbers. That's a sin. As far as I'm concerned, there's an extra hot place in hell for people.
Yeah, man,
like
that's
that.
just as criminal.
And I don't want to, be mean to people, but they need to wake up.
Yeah, Vic.
They need to look at it and what's wrong with doing what's right.
Right. And I was about to say that. I was about to bring it in. It's what you said, Vic. It's one of your mottos.
Yeah.
Just do what's right. It's so much easier. You don't have to lie. There's no liability in it. Just do what's right.
What's right. What's wrong with that? That's my motto. Do what's right. What's wrong with that? My campaign slogan when I ran for re-election, under indictment, got reelected under indictment, was courage to do what's right.
Love it.
Not what's easy. Every prosecutor, every policeman should have that motto embroidered in their brain. Courage to do what's right, not what's easy. And what's happened on Rodney Reed, folks, isn't right. Tweet the governor. Email the governor. Because right now, it's on his desk. He's the guy that gets to make the decision. The last time I can recall, when I was paying attention to this, that something like this happened,
Yes.
was Henry Lee Lucas.
Yeah, with George W. Bush.
George Bush. It was Orange Socks was Henry's only death penalty. In front of Judge Carter, I think it was Carter, he may have sent it to another judge, but it was Ken Anderson and Ed Walsh, who was the DA. Ken Anderson was the assistant DA, who later became the judge. And while he was an assistant DA, wrongfully prosecuted Michael Morton. That's why he got disbarred.
Right.
Ken Anderson. But George Bush, he saw that Henry Lucas probably had not committed this crime, and George Bush did not want to be the governor that put an innocent man to death. He cares about how history is going to remember him, I would love to have him on our podcast.
That'd be awesome.
Wouldn't it? George Bush, if anybody knows George Bush, I will come to you because I want to tell you that when I heard that you had commuted that death sentence, I jumped out of my chair and I said, God bless George Bush. And I didn't agree with George Bush's politics at the time. I didn't.
But he did what was right, Vic.
But he did what was right there. And I still like George Bush. I mean, I feel like if I knew him personally, he's the kind of guy I would get along with.
I tend to agree. I would love to hang out with him.
Yeah, I would too. And he could set the rules. He could set the rules of the podcast. We won't go into any subject he doesn't want as long as we get to talk about Lucas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his paintings.
Oh, yeah. I love his paintings. And he's got a wonderful wife and a wonderful mom and dad. Yeah. Yeah. I love all the Texas Bushes. Can't say much for the Florida Bushes, but I love the Texas Bushes. So anyway, I'd like to do a live one at maybe SMU or even Baylor Law School.
Yeah, that'd be a really cool,
it really
cool
would.
setting.
I think maybe by spring, this could really be ripe for a podcast. I think we'll have our listenership up to the point by then that George Bush might even look at it and go, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I'll go talk to old Vic.
Yeah, there you go.
So anyway, reach out to the governor and let him know that this is the wrong thing to do. And also, we need to change the Court of Criminal Appeals, and we need to change the Texas Supreme Court. People, watch how you're voting. Do not vote for these people who are going to say, no, we don't care what the truth is. We're going with, we're just going to execute this black man.
Yeah.
Because he was having sex with a white woman. That's what it comes down to, because they had no other evidence against Rodney Reed other than this semen.
Right. That's it.
That's it.
That's absolutely it.
And there have been witnesses come forward later, even one of her cousins, I believe, that said, yeah, we knew they were having a relationship.
Yes.
And Jimmy Fennell, the Georgetown cop.
Yes.
the original suspect for 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Where is he now?
Well, the last I heard, he was serving a 10-year sentence for a sexual assault crime and kidnapping.
And kidnapping. Yeah, sexually assaulting a woman and kidnapping a woman. Plus, he had other history of violence against women.
Yep.
You know?
So this policeman, Mr. Jimmy Fennell, was actually Stacey Stites' fiance.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
So basically what it comes down to is Rodney Reed was having a consensual relationship with Miss Stites. And, you know, from what I could put together, Jimmy Fennell found out about it. And obviously, you know, let our listeners put 2 and 2 together.
Well, and Jimmy Fennell hated black people.
Yeah.
When he got into TDC, when he went to prison, one of the first things he did was join the Aryan Brotherhood.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And he got in tight with the Aryan Brotherhood by telling them that his ex-fiancée, the dead girl, Stacey, had been having sex with a black man.
Yeah.
And at one point, he even confessed to one of them because saying, I had to kill her because she was having sex with that N.
Right.
Yeah. Use that word that we don't use anymore. That used to be way too common.
Yeah.
Now, about the only time you hear it is when other black people call each other that, and even that's wrong. Yeah. Let's put that away like we put away slavery. Let's put away all kinds of negative connotations, all kinds of negative talk against each other. Let's put an end to the hate talk.
Stop the hate, Vic.
Stop the hate. And we're not going to do it with laws. We got to do it with changing our hearts by having awareness, thinking about what you're doing, thinking about what you're saying, and having the courage to do and say the right thing, not just what might feel good at the moment, what you might get an emotional payoff for. Man, if you've read any Facebook lately,
oh God,
I'm trying to get off of that.
It's
people are crazy, man. The way they you can say I like pizza, and you're going to get somebody screaming and yelling at you. And then
true.
Eventually 20 comments down it becomes political.
Right.
It's crazy.
No,
So
you're right, Vic.
people do what's right. Hey, this case has so many problems with it.
Well, let me ask you this one real quick, Vic. So I did note in here what you just said, that there was not a jailhouse or a jail snitch, but it was another member of the Aryan Brotherhood who did come forward and say that yes, Jimmy Fennell did confess to him that he did murder the fiance. How does it go with regards to jail testimony? How much can you rely on it in a courtroom? How much can you really use it to sway a jury even?
You can use it. You can use it. Now, somebody's in jail and they confess to somebody, you can put that person on the stand. But now the defense has a right to find out, has that person been made any offers?
Okay.
Is the prosecution going easy on you? Are you getting any kind of better deal? Are they going to let you out sooner? They're going to let you plead to a lesser offense if you wasn't already convicted, all that. And you get to weigh. It doesn't go to the admissibility of the testimony. It goes to the credibility.
Right.
So you get it in, but you can consider, this is a jailhouse snitch before you believe it.
So when you're a DA, for example, Vic, you use snitches on a couple of your cases, right?
Oh, yeah.
And did you find that useful?
We did. On the first Lake murder case, we used 5 or 6 witnesses from TDC that David Spence had confessed to that he had done it.
That's why they named the book Careless Whispers, right?
Uh-huh.
Because that's what they call that when you're in prison, right? When you just kind of talk to certain people to ego up, but also to kind of...
That's part of the reason. Another reason is that was Munir Deeb, and he was another defendant in the Lake murders. That was one of his favorite songs.
Is that right?
Wham! And he had talked to one of his girlfriends about how he was afraid that things were going to get messed up on this because David was talking about it. And he said, it's like that song, Careless Whispers. And so that's how the book got named Careless Whispers. I think it talks about it some in the book. But yeah, that old Wham! George Michael was in that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so funny.
So we used some snitches in Lake Murder number 1 and got a conviction. And when we tried it the second time, the first time we convicted him for killing Jill Montgomery. Now, I made a mistake last time. I said we convicted him in Bryan College Station on the second one for the murder of Jill Rice. Raylene Rice, I mean. Not true. That was Kenneth Frank's murder that we tried him for down there. Because Kenneth's mom and dad were really involved. They would come to the trial. Raylene's parents, they lost their pretty little girl, and they didn't want anything to do with it after that. If we could make the case without them, they wanted to. Because, see, their little girl wasn't involved in this at all.
Right.
She didn't live at the Methodist home. She didn't know Kenneth Franks. She didn't know Gail Kelly, who was the intended victim. She had met Jill Montgomery while working at Fort Fisher in the gift shop over at the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Jeez.
And that's how she met, and they lived in Hillsboro. Jill had gone back to live with her mom in Hillsboro, and Jill and Raylene drove to Waco to pick up Jill's last check from Fort Fisher. And Jill said, hey, let's go see my friend Kenneth Franks and go out to the lake. And that's when David Spence saw him and thought that it was Gail Kelly instead of Jill. And see, poor little Raylene had nothing to do with it. So, yeah, we convicted him again, David Spence again, in Bryan College Station for the murder of Kenneth Franks without using any snitch testimony in that case.
Gotcha.
By then, we decided just in case, the Court of Appeals should have a problem, let's try the next one without him. And we did,
that's smart.
And we got a conviction on that one too. And the jury was out on sentencing for only about 15 minutes before they came back with the death penalty.
Wow.
Yeah. We tried a good case. I tried that with Ned Butler, fabulous lawyer. Ned died last year.
Oh.
He was a fabulous lawyer. Yeah.
What I really enjoy, Vic, is getting your point of view on this stuff, because you were district attorney. And you have taken anything from a misdemeanor case all the way up to, again, a capital murder case, and you've gone death penalties. So I really value your position on this stuff, especially when it comes to a case like this one. So that kind of concludes the jail snitch.
The jail snitch. But I'd like to say something else about that he sought protection from the Aryan Brotherhood while he was incarcerated. And he confessed to a guy named Arthur Snow, who is also in the Aryan Brotherhood. And Snow is the one who, he didn't like the idea that this guy had killed his 19-year-old fiance, even if he had done it because she was having sex with a black man.
Yeah.
He said, Jimmy said his fiance had been sleeping around with a black man behind his back. Toward the end of the conversation, Jimmy said confidentially, I had to kill my in-loving fiance. And Snow wrote this in an affidavit after he realized that the guy named Reed was serving time for Stites' murder and didn't think someone else should be in prison for a murder that this guy had committed.
Yep.
Now, Reed's lawyers filed a petition for clemency with the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles based on that affidavit. In response, Fennell's lawyer, the Georgetown policeman, who I think probably really killed her.
Yeah.
They said, "Oh, that affidavit means nothing. You got to consider Snow's criminal past, and it negates his credibility."
Okay, so it's like what you said. And frankly, if you're the defense, that's exactly what I would do. Just try to knock out the credibility.
Yeah.
So that's what they pulled.
But if they're going to do that, doesn't that also knock out the credibility of their own client, Mr. Fennell?
Dun, dun,
because he
dun.
has a violent criminal history, and he was in the Aryan Brotherhood.
You're right.
So,
You're right.
yeah. So that, you can't believe him. Well, if you can't believe him, you can't believe your
You
client
can't believe
either.
your guy either.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I understand there's been a petition that's already got about 150,000 names on it
Wow.
that has been presented to the governor, and so far he's just ignoring it.
Wow, man.
Now, there's a lot more about this, Jonathan.
Oh, do tell.
First off, we've already talked, the murder weapon has never been tested for DNA.
Okay.
They still have that murder weapon. Why won't they test it?
Right. At the very minimum, throw a stay on the execution. Send it off to the lab. What does that hurt?
This is America, man. This is where we talk about truth and justice. Let's live up to that.
Yeah.
Let's not just spout empty words. Let's live up to it. Let's be truth and justice. Gandhi, be the change that you want to see in the world.
Love it.
You be the change. So if we want truth and justice in our world...
So do you and I have to go down and grab the belt? Is that what you're saying?
No, they should do it.
Let's go get the belt, Vic. We're taking it to the lab.
Go get the belt. Go get the... Boy, I heard that when I was a kid.
Oh, no.
Go get the belt.
Oh, no.
But they do need to get that belt and test it. Because like Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see. Well, we want to see truth and justice. Be truth and justice. Those people down there need to be truth and justice. Our Court of Criminal Appeals needs to be truth and justice. Not just talk truth and justice, but be truth and justice. And we wouldn't have these problems. That belt is still there. Test it. All right, test it. Number 2, the state's 3 forensic experts have admitted on the record to errors in their testimony.
Uh-oh.
Which led to Reed's conviction and death row sentence. And so 3 of their experts say, oh, never mind. We made mistakes.
And in particular, they made the mistake about the time of death, which is crucial because the time of death was off. And if it was the actual time of death when she was murdered, there's no way that Rodney Reed could have done it. He wasn't even present at that time.
Right. And because it was possible, based on if it was a different time of death, that Jimmy Fennell was with her.
Right.
I keep wanting to say Jimmy Kimmel, but it wasn't Jimmy Kimmel.
No,
Don't get me wrong. It wasn't Jimmy
no.
Kimmel. It was this Aryan Brotherhood Georgetown policeman named Jimmy Fennell. That's a spice, isn't it? Goes in
Fennel.
sausage.
It
Fennell?
is.
Yeah. So anyway, these three of their top scientific experts now say, never mind,
whoopsies.
we were wrong. But what does the Court of Criminal Appeals do? Oh, well, that doesn't matter. They said it, so it stands. BS, BS, BS. How is that truth and justice? How is that the American way? I'm telling you, Superman would be ashamed of us. Wasn't that his motto? Truth, justice, and the American way?
Sounds good to me. I don't know for sure.
That's somebody's motto. Also, there have been other renowned pathologists, including Michael Baden, Werner Spitz, Leroy Riddick, and Cyril Wetz, all medical doctors, all with degrees, as many degrees as a thermometer. I mean, these are smart guys. And they say that Reed's guilt is medically and scientifically impossible.
Wow.
Impossible. They say the prosecution's only forensic evidence linking Reed to the crime was semen taken from Stites' body, which was attributed to the consensual relationship between them.
Boom.
The prosecution used this to connect him to the murder and refute his consensual romantic relationship by supporting testimony. But supporting testimony has since been recanted and completely discredits the state's case. So all the supporting evidence has been discredited.
Yep.
The state's case discredited. The 3 scientists say, we made a mistake.
Our bad.
The belt that strangled the victim, strangled Stacey Stites, they still have it, and it could have DNA on it, and they won't test it. Yet and this man has been in prison for 21 years.
Yes.
And they want to execute him this November 20th. You know, Rodney Reed and Stacey Stites were having a consensual sexual relationship.
Yep.
At the time of the trial, unfortunately, no one came forward to corroborate that. But today, there are new witnesses, including Stacey Stites' own cousin and a co-worker, have corroborated Reed's claim that they knew that Reed and Stites were romantically involved.
I'm very curious, Vic. Why do you think nobody came forward at the time of the original trial? Do you think it was because the other suspect was a cop? Do you think there could be some backlash on the people that way, or is it just afraid of even getting close to it? What have you found with witnesses like this? They just not want to be involved, just get away from me?
They all have their own story, and you've hit most of the reasons. They're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought he was going to be found not guilty, so they didn't need me. I was afraid of making this policeman mad because he's got a reputation for having a temper. He's beating up other women. He's in prison now for that. A lot of different reasons. Or, like one guy said, I really never thought he'd be convicted. They didn't have any evidence on him. And then when he was convicted, they come forward and they say, well, it's too late now. You should have been here for the trial.
Yeah, which is what it seems like in this case.
It seems like it, yeah. But if the main suspect is a cop in Georgetown and you live in Georgetown, plus in 1991, and, it doesn't sound like that far ago, but believe it or not, attitudes have changed a lot since 1991. They changed a lot between, say, the early 50s and 1970. Then they changed again between 70 and, say, 86. Then they changed again. Every decade and a half, I think we have a small leap in consciousness where we get just a little bit better about all this racism and hate and all that. You wouldn't know it by reading Facebook and all that, but I think things are getting better. But in 1991, just the fact that this cute little 19-year-old white woman was having a consensual relationship with a black man, that would have been a problem down there. And a lot of people would have kept their mouths shut about that, thinking they might be protecting the reputation of their dead cousin.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason. They're coming forward now, and a man's life is at stake.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that she was having a sexual relationship with Rodney Reed.
Yeah.
Now, the state of Texas is about to do something really, really wrong. And George Bush, if you're out there, if you hear this, if anybody knows George Bush, get him to pick up the phone and call Greg Abbott.
Yeah, man, get him the cordless.
Yeah, give him the cordless. Take it to him. Take that paintbrush out of his hand, put the phone in and say, call Abbott and tell him, don't be remembered by history as the last Texas governor to execute an innocent man, claiming that it's judicial. It's like a lynching in a way. This should not be happening.
Yeah, man.
Fennell's best friend at the time of the crime was a Bastrop sheriff's officer named Curtis Davis.
Okay.
He has now revealed that Fennell gave an inconsistent account of where he was on the night of the murder.
Oh, great.
Now, see, that's what I meant. Fennell's buddies were looking into the investigation, and they didn't want to believe it was Fennell. But now Curtis Davis says, God, I have to admit now, Fennell gave an inconsistent statement of where he was on the night of the murder. Fennell told his friend that he was out drinking on the night that Stites was murdered. Out drinking. Well, where are your alibis, Fennell?
Yeah.
Where were you? Where's your bar
tab? Who
tab?
were you with? Yeah.
Who are you with? Cough it up. But contradicting this claim, he later told Sheriff's Officer Curtis Davis that he was with Stites in her apartment during what we know was the actual time of her death. That's what these new pathologists came out and said. They were wrong on the time of death. And based on Dr. Michael Baden's updated testimony, it puts Fennell with Stites at the time of Stites' murder.
Wow, man.
People, wake up and smell the coffee.
Yeah.
This is wrong. This is so wrong that it's evil. It's evil not to do something about it. Fennell declined to testify because his answers might further incriminate him. That means...
That sounds like the action of a guilty man.
Mr. Policeman Aryan Brotherhood Fennell took the fifth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Now, 2 witnesses have come forward in recent weeks and submitted signed affidavits that add to the mounting evidence against Jimmy Fennell. These affidavits include testimony, get this, testimony from an insurance salesman who stated that Fennell threatened to kill Stites while applying for a life insurance policy.
Beautiful.
Oh, my
Beautiful.
God.
With the Lake murders all over again. Take out the policy and off them.
I know.
Ah, jeez.
And
Classic.
he threatened to kill her right in front of the insurance guy. And the second witness was a deputy in the Lee County Sheriff's Office at the time of the murder, who said Fennell made an alarming and incriminating statement at Stites' funeral regarding her body. It doesn't say what I don't know what it was, but it was bad enough that this deputy in Lee County thought that somebody should know about it, because apparently he's got concerns that the wrong man is in prison for this, and not only in prison, but about to have the needle stuck in his arm.
Crazy.
And Fennell later served a 10-year prison term for a sex crime and kidnapping. Law enforcement records also document a pattern of violence against women perpetuated by Jimmy Fennell.
There you go.
This case is racially charged, people. It's racially charged, and we should at least, if he's not going to commute the death sentence, at least stay it for 6 months and get that belt tested, you know?
I agree.
Reed was a black man. He was found guilty of murder in Stites, a white woman, by an all-white jury, and they refused to test the belt. Now, Mr. Jarrett, Michael Jarrett, had a lot of nice things to say about his old boss, John Bradley. I've had my own run-ins with John Bradley in the past, and I don't share Michael Jarrett's opinion of John Bradley.
Fair.
And I do believe it was John Bradley who said, no, we're not going to test this, and he fought it.
Yeah.
He fought it. He might have been the DA during some of the Michael Morton appeals, too. I don't know. I need to look into that, because we hopefully are going to have Michael Morton on
That'd
next
be awesome.
year. Yeah. And we're going to have on one of the...
Oh, yeah, we got some great guests getting lined up for next year.
Well, you tell us about that.
Well, we got one of the West Memphis 3 coming on.
Okay, I didn't know if we could talk about that.
Yeah, why
Good.
not? Why not?
I'm excited about that.
That'd be really cool.
He's out now, and if you haven't seen the documentary, there's several,
There's
right?
three of them in the Paradise Lost, and I forget the name of the other 2, but they're great.
Yeah, watch them. West Memphis 3. And they had a suspect in that case, and everybody thinks they know who committed those murders.
Yeah.
And nobody would do anything to him.
What is with that, Vic?
I don't get it.
What is with that?
I don't get it. It's like after the horses are out of barn, nobody wants to round them up and put them back in.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a round, but
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to let these horses out of the barn, it's your job to round them up and put them back in.
I like all of your farm references.
Well, I grew up on a farm, yeah. And I got to disagree with John Denver. Life on the farm is not laid back.
No?
Kind of laid back, yeah. No, it's not. You work your butt off.
Fair enough.
Let's get Rodney Reed off of death row.
Yeah.
You know, if we're not going to get him out of prison right now, let's at least get him off of death row until this belt is tested, because Governor Abbott, someday that belt will be tested.
Yeah.
Someday it will, unless somebody does something illegally to destroy it.
Yeah.
Someday it will be tested, and Governor, you will have egg on your face.
Oh, yeah.
You will have egg on your face, and you will have some answering to do once you get through the pearly gates, if you get there. You'll have some answering to do, because this is not right. Have the courage to do what's right, not just do what's easy.
What a good moral. So let me ask you this, Vic. So let's say they do test the belt. It comes back, and sure enough, it's actually Jimmy Fennell's DNA on it. You know, they obviously will release Rodney Reed. I mean, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to hold him at that point.
Well, that's my opinion, but that would be up to the courts.
Right,
That'd be up to the courts. I think the guy deserves an actual innocence finding.
I do too.
There are not many of them that get out that I think really deserve the money,
Well,
because sometimes they let them out just because there wasn't enough evidence. But an actual innocence means we know they didn't do it. And if we know they didn't do it, they should be compensated for that time they lost.
Right. And that was going to be where I was going with this. Is the question is, how does that all work? So he gets out. He is innocent. No Alford plea like what they did with the West Memphis 3.
Yeah, because the West
Memphis
Memphis 3, they twisted their arms for them to get out and made them plead and admit that, well, the state has enough to convict me, but I'm pleading not guilty.
Yes.
And then they dismiss it, and they don't get any money for all those years, all the wasted opportunity, the colleges they never got to go to, the wives they never had, the children they never had. Lost opportunity. That's what that money is for.
Yeah.
You know?
So how does it work? Is there a cap set on it?
I
Do you
think
get
it's
an amount
80
per year?
I think it's 80,000 a year in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that's it. And
Wow.
that's why I was so pleased that Abel Reyna and Michael Jarrett retried Ed Graff.
Yeah.
I tried him the first time and he was convicted. I knew that guy was guilty, man. I could not go in court and ask a jury to find somebody guilty and put him to death or sentence him to life for something that I had doubts about. But I had no doubt about Ed Graff. Ed Graff got out later, or his sentence was reversed later on a technicality, something I had nothing to do with. It was because they just wiped out all arson evidence. So later, Abel, Reyna, and Michael Jarrett come along, and they retried Graff without the arson evidence, and they still convict him.
Yeah.
And then Graff stands up in court and says, my only regret is I didn't also kill my wife.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Which, for our listeners, the Ed Graff case is where he took two stepsons and burned them in the shed behind his house.
Yeah, for insurance.
For insurance.
Yeah. And because he and his new wife had just had a baby, and those two boys.
He didn't like the stepkids.
He didn't like them. They were a pain. They were boys. Boys would be boys, you know. They'd run through the house or not put their clothes up, and he'd get mad. And he was a real disciplinarian. He would beat those kids, and he would scream at them, and he would punish them unmercifully. And when Abel and Michael finally got this to case, some of the little bitty kids that my staff never talked to, they talked to. And
they're
they
all
knew
grown up
stuff
now.
I didn't know. Yeah, they were all grown up now. And they remembered a lot.
Wow,
and reconvicted Ed Graff. But if Abel and Michael had not done that, Ed Graff would not only have gotten off free of murder, but he'd have walked away with several $1 million.
Crazy.
Yeah, and his lawyers, several $1 million. I mean, $80,000 a year over how many years he was in? 20 years or something like that.
Yeah. That's wild, Vic. Well, anything else you want to add to the Rodney Reed case other than a plea for Governor Abbott to take a look at this thing and, at minimum, throw a stay on it, test the damn belt?
Yeah. If you at least, give it a stay. If you don't want to commute it, give it a stay. But that belt needs to be tested. And if that belt comes back with Jimmy Fennels on it, that guy needs to be indicted. He needs to never get out of prison. Never.
And you just triggered my brain on this one, Vic. One quick thing to add to this, too. Jimmy Fennell was given 2 polygraph tests, and he failed both of them. so is that to stack onto the situation?
Yeah, that piles on. Yeah, it does.
So, I mean, you have, murder for motive. Obviously she was cheating on him. Life insurance policy. I mean, what more do you really need, Vic? We've seen people murder for far less.
I could convict him with my tongue tied behind my back.
Okay. I don't know how that would look, but all right. It's like Gene Simmons.
There's a lot of things about being a prosecutor I miss, but I don't know if I'd ever do it again.
Seems
I
like
wouldn't
a lot of
mind being
stress.
on the Court of Criminal Appeals, except they're probably governed by the same constitution that other judges are, and you're required to retire when you're 72. And shoot, man, that's right around the corner for me. And I plan to live to be at least 140. So I got to find something to do. I guess I'll just keep trying cases.
There you go.
Yeah, keep making little assistant DAs mad at me. I had one yell at me last week.
Yes,
Put
you
his
did.
hand up in my face, man. So I'm not talking to you. Talk to the hand. Something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
You actually said talk to the hand?
No, he didn't say that. But he did stick his hand in my face, just like they do when they say talk to the hand. He says, I'm not talking to you. And he looked around me at my Robbie that works with me,
Yeah.
who was there in court with me. And so I'm talking to him. Wow.
Man.
So I went and visited with his boss after that, and I told his boss, I said, I just want to let you know, the last time an assistant DA talked to me that way, I told him I'm going to run against your boss just so I can fire you. And I did.
That's funny.
Yeah. Let's do something about Rodney Reed. People burn up the internet. Get on there. I put something on Facebook this morning about it, and I've gotten all kinds of responses.
Oh, that's cool.
About people wanting to get him out.
And I would say too, Vic, if I was a listener of this, the worst that could happen is they test the belt and it pops back and it says Rodney Reed. Fine. But at the end of the day, you went through the proper steps to ensure justice. And to me, that's what this is about. It's about doing the right thing and going through the right steps to get a conviction.
You got to go through it.
I would want the same for me. A listener, if you were charged with something, you'd want the same for you. Go through the right steps. I mean, we have these fail-safes built into our judicial system and justice system, Vic, so that these things don't happen. But when you have these kind of willy-nilly prosecutors and whatnot that won't even test DNA belts, that's where the issues pop in. And this should be the checks and balances of our society and as a public to, throw the outcry when these things happen.
If we want to remain a free people, we've got to be fair.
Yeah.
We've got to be honest, And our government's got to quit cheating people and putting innocent people in prison. That's cheating people.
Yeah.
Taking money out of Social Security to pay for wars. That's cheating people. We got to quit cheating people because that's what makes governments fall, is when the little guy gets stepped on too much. You can step on the little guy a little and he'll put up with it. You step on him too much, you got a revolution on your hand. I don't want that. I love this country. People, go vote. Go vote and vote for people with a mind. Vote for people with a heart. Vote for people that are going to have the courage to do the right thing. And don't vote for anybody that's backed by a corporation or by these big PACs.
No
because
joke.
They're dishonest. They're evil. All they want to do is kill you and take the money out of your pocket. They don't care if they kill the planet,
Yeah, that too.
Please go out and vote. And that's the long term. I'm always playing the long game. But on the short game, give Governor Abbott some hell. Burn up his phone lines. Burn up his Twitter. Burn up everything. And I don't mean set on fire. I mean,
we don't mean literally burn it.
Yeah. I mean, clog the lines with messages. Them internet tubes they talk about with all that information going through it? Who was it that said
highway.
that? Yeah. Clog those tubes, man.
Ridiculous.
Let's get Rodney off of death row. I think I'll just end with, let's have courage to do what's right instead of just doing what's easy.
Amen, Vic.
Thank you for listening to the Vic Feazell Show podcast. We're a primary source podcast. We don't just read about it and then talk about it. We talk about people we've known, things we've done. We're a primary source podcast. Leave a review. Sign up for our email list. And go visit our store. We have a page on www.vicfeazell.com.
He's checking your speed, he's checking it twice. You better be sober and you better drive nice. Trooper Bob's patrolling tonight. The law offices of Vic Feazell wish you a happy and laid-back holiday season. And if you've been injured by someone who wasn't driving laid back, don't call for just any lawyer. Call Vic Feazell. Drive laid back and lower your speed. 1-877 with Vic.